Hello, Ed 407-507. Welcome to class session 13. Let's go ahead and take a look at this week's agenda. The final has been posted, so please make sure that you go in. You have all of week 13, 14, and 15 to complete, so that is plenty of time to give you to complete your final. So please make a note of that and complete that as part of your assignments. The assignments due, we'll talk about in just a moment. New assignments, new topic on ELL and writing, and then we'll wrap things up for this week. The assignments that are due already are the videotape and reflection, section 5 of Graham and Harris with a reading quiz, and a discussion board on a handwriting development model. Your new assignments for this week are to do section 6 of Graham and Harris, take the reading quiz. Written expression projects are due next week, so you can even turn it in live at our live class session for week 14. You could submit it then. Graduate project presentations. So of course for next week we are going to start our presentations. So groups who are presenting on that week need to be ready. And of course the Blackboard discussion board on writing strategies for ELL students. As we begin to jump into our new topic for English language learners, I want to remind you to go back and use those SciOps strategies that I have been provided you with before during the math portion when we transferred over to writing. So please know that all of the strategies that are listed in there, you can certainly apply them towards writing instruction for your students. Even though you might not have students who are both ELL and special education, please keep in mind that a variety of the different strategies and things we were going to talk about don't just apply to ELL learners, but all learners who might struggle with the area of writing and specifically with written expression. So before we get too in depth into this, I would like you to write down the word explanation. Explanation is your password for this week. Please email that to me via email after you get done watching this video. Once again, that word is explanation. Okay. Here's the first thing that I want you to think of as we begin to discuss this. I would like you to think about writing the match abilities. Writing instruction must be progressive and matched to individual abilities. It's important to know that where the student is individually at, where their writing instruction is going to fall based on where their language is at. You cannot expect a student who is not at all fluent in the area of language just be able to write you an essay. That's just not going to happen. We've got to be very progressive to build not only the language but also being able to have them use their language ability and apply it directly to their writing so that way they can communicate in an alternative form rather than just speaking. Build sentences. For beginning ELL writers, use individual words printed on cards and show students how to form sentences from those cards. Once the basics of sentence structure are understood, print sentences on strips of paper and ask students to maybe arrange them into paragraphs for where they meet. It is very important to know that this strategy doesn't just help them with writing, but it also helps them with reading and understanding sentence structure. And sentence structure is very different in various different languages, so that is key to helping them to understand, and having great models of that is very important. Another thing is if you are utilizing programs where you're able to color code, such as using StepUp, for example, that process might be even easier for the students, having the strips actually be green, yellow, or red. It's very visual for them, but really helps them to understand how to form paragraphs. Okay, next is I want you to model standard structures and ask your more advanced ELL writers to write in English only. It'll really help them to adjust. Just like how we do in the classroom, for those students who are ready to just talk, let's get them exposed to as much English as they can so they can quickly pick it up and go with it. Model standard academic structures of paragraph and essay writing in English. A great deal of modeling and providing a model for them while they do their writing is very key, but keep in mind that that's for your students who are more fluent speaking. Okay. Strategies. There are writing activities, the cohesion links, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. The interactive writing, word walls are so very, very important, and doing writing workshops is really great for your students as well. There is no reason why you can't have them do the same activities that your other students are doing. Once again, those expectations are just going to be modified and altered to accommodate those students based off of where their language is. That's the key. So you're going to begin by doing an analysis, and you want to make sure you match up what they're currently reading, what the student's language proficiency is, and what their background knowledge is. Those 3 things are very key in beginning to figure out where you start with your kids. In addition, I would like you to ask yourself the following questions that we're going to be talking over, these key concepts to think of when we're teaching writing. Number 1, features of genre. What genre are you currently teaching your students, and is it accessible for ELL writers? Are they using graphics? Are they using graphic organizers? Are they using highlight models, notes, guides, guided questions, word banks, etc.? Making sure that they have tools available to them to make this easier for them is very important. However, you do not want to overwhelm them with the busyness of too many things all at once and distract them from actually learning. You can't expect them to have a graphic organizer and notes and guide and guided questions all at the same time. That is overwhelming. You can certainly build up to that, but that's not where you want to start. Starting with a word bank might be very helpful for them as they start to get going, and then showing them how to use the word bank and putting it into a graphic organizer, and then moving from there. So making sure that it is very helpful, it's not going to hinder them by the busyness of what it looks like. The next thing that I want you to consider is the concept load. Thinking of what the load is of what you're asking them to do. Is it dense in terms of the number of new ideas of concepts introduced and explained in the flow of the narrative or exposition? That's very important to think about. How much are you wanting them to share on a certain concept? Next, are there new ideas and terms sufficiently described, defined, or elaborated so as to build an understanding of related concepts or ideas that are easy to flow? In a narrative text or academic essay, what is the writer's intent or purpose? What does he or she want to convey to the reader? What kind of information do they want to share about? Is it a mood? Is it a feeling? A new understanding or interpretation of a concept or an idea? A description of a person or a character? These are all things that you need to kind of understand to see, are they able to actually share this type of concept back via writing and communicate that with you. Next is text structure. How is the text structured? What is the function of different paragraphs or sections? What's the sequence? What's the order of exposition and followed? How are the ideas woven together in a cohesive text? So keep that in mind. Next, what connecting words are used to show logical connections and to give the text cohesion? You can see here there are examples of additional ideas, indicators, doing a compare and contrast, words to do summary or conclusion, the order of things, sequencing of terms. One of the things that, as you know, is very helpful for students are having those quick guides that they can have right in front of them, such as a guide for transitions. But when we're teaching students, when they first are getting this, you can't just throw a whole bunch at them all at once. You got to start off slow. One of the easiest things that we do in writing, even when students are really young, when they're beginning to learn how to write, especially when writing in paragraphs, they might say, you know, what are the 3 things I did over my break? First, I did this. Second, I did that. Third, I did that. That is very easy for them to understand. It goes in a numerical order, which numbers are universal. So using that is a great way to help them to sequence their ideas rather than expecting them to use words like in addition, also, therefore, moreover, etc. Okay? Next is writer's background knowledge. As we talk about this, it's not just ELL students, it's all students, but understanding that we can't really have a bias when we are asking a certain prompt of students. If they've never had the experience or it's something that's not familiar to them, they're not going to be able to write too much about it as any student. So you can't say, oh, how was your Christmas? What did you do over your Christmas break? That might be something that they really don't understand the concept of Christmas if they don't celebrate Christmas or they don't know. So it could just be, tell me about a time that your family had a celebration or had a get together or had a party, etc. Might be more appropriate, but even then you might still have students who just don't celebrate anything in any way, shape, or form, and so you might have to just talk about a time that the family got together type of thing. Okay. Next is vocabulary. Vocabulary always is key with what we're asking them to share. The vocabulary of what they want to say, they might be able to say the word, but they might not be able to put it in context. So keeping that in the forefront of your mind and making sure that if you do have a word wall, your word wall is very clear. It's easy to understand. Maybe there's images or pictures that kind of go along with things to help the understanding of what they're meaning to say. Idiomatic usages Are there idiomatic expressions or jargon that might be unfamiliar to ELL writers used in a passage? For example, if you have something that is basically a slang to maybe even the current community, might not be something that they've been familiar with, and it's very confusing for them. Also, there are a lot of old expressions that we use in English that don't make a whole lot of sense, and typically ELL students take it very literally. So you can't take a horse, I'm trying to think what the saying is, leading a horse to water, for example. That might not be very familiar with them if they've never experienced what that concept or what that jargon actually means. You might want to make sure that the simplest are the sentences. Excuse me, I can't talk today. You're rephrasing exactly what you want it to be, but making it very simplistic. And then stylistic elements, especially if you're using similes or metaphors, that's a very abstract concept to students who don't really understand our language, relating that the color brown is like a cardboard box. That might be too far stretched for some students. However, if you can visually demonstrate it, that concept can come very quickly to those students. So keep that in mind. As we wrap this unit up, I want you to do a personal review. I want you to think about what your strengths and challenges are in implementing writing instruction. And what are your next steps? What are your hopes for where you want to go with writing instruction? Do you feel through looking at the different strategies and through this course, have you been able to understand how to maybe implement different writing instruction within your classroom? Or are you already doing it? Do you see maybe your building has a great writing program? You feel very confident in teaching writing? If so, that's fabulous. What else do you want to do? What's the next step you're planning to take? And that wraps it up for this week. If you have any questions or have any final thoughts, as always, feel free to communicate and let me know. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks.